the reforms of the public distribution system? How effective do you find this recommendation of end-to-end computerization of the entire system?
I think it is imperative. End-to-end computerization is absolutely imperative, and we have many models available now across the country. One model is what Chhattisgarh is now trying out, called the core PDS model, which essentially, like core banking, core PDS essentially, what it does is it's a smart card based solution where the RSBY smart card is additionally enabled with some more memory, so that it has details of the ration offtake as well. And then there is, because Chhattisgarh already has end-to-end computerization, you can use that card and you can take your ration from any ration shop. So there is internal competition. After that has been introduced, a lot of ration dealers have given up because one, last mile authentication is happening, so pilferage has gone down. The shopkeeper stocks are released only after the biometric authentication happens. Because of biometric authentication, ghost cards have gone. So that's one model. The second model, and the advantage of this model is that it's portable. The second model is what has been tried out in East Godavari by the district collector and the deputy collector, the additional collector, Babu Ahmed, who have essentially used the UID platform or the Aadhaar platform and created a Aadhaar-enabled system. Now, that is also very similar to the Chhattisgarh model.
Ideally, it should work on the same model.
Instead of using the RSBY cards, Chhattisgarh could not go in for Aadhaar-based solution because they did not have a penetration of Aadhaar cards. And there is no penetration there because the Unique Identification Authority of India is not giving out Aadhaar cards in Chhattisgarh. It's one of the states where the NPR is doing. And the National Population Register is way behind schedule. So therefore they couldn't bank on Aadhaar-based solution. They went
even Aadhaar is facing a lot of glitches. A lot of people have complained that their forms were filled up 3 years, 2 years back.
But that's bound to happen. That's bound to happen. But in East Godavari, where the penetration was good, where they had 100% coverage in those mandals where this was tried out, it uses a number and a biometric authentication, a point-of-sale device, very similar to that in Chhattisgarh, where you give your biometrics and then the system takes over. So that's the second model. Now what is notable is both these models, they are not linked to any kind of cash transfers. They are not linked to any kind of subsidy transfers. They are it's the same PDS shop, the price is the same, the consumer pays the same price and buys the goods as they did earlier, but the system is much more efficient and it's much neater. So these two models are there of computerization. Chhattisgarh has an end-to-end computerization from procurement right down to the shop now with the core PDS once it expands. It will be a complete change. Andhra, of course, it's a small experiment, it's a localized experiment, it's a local model. It's not an end-to-end computerization and they've not done a lot of the other reforms attending. So, the East Godavari model can't be seen in isolation. So, because Chhattisgarh is an older system, a more robust system, it looks better, but it could well work under Aadhaar. Now, what are the advantages of this end-to-end computerization other than eliminating corruption, which uses Aadhaar or RSBY or any last mile authentication? The biggest advantage is that today, entitlements are not portable. Now, if I was an NREGA worker, I can only work in my panchayat, in a rural area. So the entitlement is fixed to a location. But for many of our programs and schemes, suppose I'm a migrant worker and I come to Delhi, ideally I should be able to, my entitlement should be portable. I should be able to get the same quantity of food grains that I was getting in my village from any shop anywhere in the country. Now that entitlement portability can only happen if you have a system which A uses last mile authentication, B is online, and C operates in real time. Once these three conditions are met, you can have a portable entitlement portability which is complete. And I think that for that we need a uniform platform across the country, which is why I have been saying that having an Aadhaar based system, because you will have Aadhaar cards across the country, I can't see, and there are some concerns that people have raised, including delays, security issues and so on. But despite that, I find that the benefits of the system outweigh the disadvantage.
Eventually these glitches will be overcome.
Eventually these glitches will be over, and we need a uniform system across the country with one software and platform, with one public distribution system network, as was recommended by the Nandan Electronic Committee, where we can ensure portability, we can ensure corruption going down, and we can ensure people getting access to the internet.
Dr. Das, your take on how the use of technology, as you mentioned earlier, is bringing about the real reform in the period?
Exactly. It was very well elucidated. See, right now it is happening in a piecemeal way. There are some states who have these systems in place. There are differences in systems. What is required is to link this entire program, and I keep saying that we need to see the interconnectedness of the whole thing. You have National E-Governance program, and Ministry of IT has to come into this. Very rightly said that the portability of entitlements is the key. And if you have a nationwide computerization and e-governance system, of which this becomes an important plank, I think this would do the trick in terms of, tackling the pilferage, in terms of increasing the mobility of people from one place to another place. Otherwise, even with that technology, they can just get stuck in a particular region. And most importantly, this, if you can link to some of the other initiatives that have been taken by the government, or you can debate, the pros and cons, but like the direct cash transfer scheme, the entire issue of multi-brand retail, given the stipulations that are there, and also, safeguarding some of the national interests in that context, the entire employment generation scheme. I guess the issue should be that we should get away from the mindset of just sympathizing and caressing the lack of capacities of our people. I mean, we have to get out of this mindset of having development with a human face by just caressing the incapacities of people. What we need to do is create an enabling environment, try to have programs that enhances the capacities of our masses, and these enabling policy mechanisms and technology ultimately incentivize them to come to the market and fight it out and live a livelihood for them. So I think there is some small movement towards that, where people will start respecting the hard work and labor by themselves.
Okay. Dr. Saxena, all these technology supporting models that your co-panelists have been talking about, what happens to the monitoring aspect of it, something that you mentioned very early?
That is very important, because computerization only enables you to check corruption. If there is no way to check corruption, and if you are a part of the supervisory machinery, the part of that corruption, then it would be, even computerization may not help. So there has to be some kind of a pressure on state governments to ensure that that computerization is not only done, it is actually used. And we only computerize and create more data and more files and more distant websites. It is not going to help unless you all decide that we are going to use it to check corruption. That's very important. The other point I would like to add, when we're talking about privatization versus SOGs, etc., there are, of course, other models also. Gujarat has tried two models. One is that they take the truck directly to the village and say, okay, you can take 2 months or 3 months ration at a time. And then it will be, 3 months ration will be about 100 kilos. So 2 bags of 50 kilos can be given against the price of, say, 3 rupees per kilo, whatever it is.
Who distributes that?
The government does it. The government does it. So therefore the state corporation will take it to the village. That is one. The other is, generally you find that when you ask the private shopkeeper to open a shop, you generally give it to a person who is unemployed, or who is a retired fellow from the army, etc. They have no enterprise. They have no entrepreneurial qualities. They have no money to invest. So they lease it out to others. If you just do a survey of Delhi, you will find that all the original leaseholders, they have leased out their shops to a few contractors. So therefore, one contractor in Delhi is running about 20 or 30 shops because he has bought this. So what Gujarat has tried is, they have given it the shop to a to a person who is already running a kirana shop or a shop which is selling other items. The idea being that if there is a shop, a viable shop selling, say, toothpaste or soap and other items, and ask them to keep grain also, he would be able to run it at a lower margin. That shop would be open most of the time.
But won't there be a conflict of interest?
Well, in fact, you have to only ensure that this person is not selling grain. He is selling other items, that's all. He is not selling wheat or rice, the item that you have selected. Because he would care for the sentiment or he will try to satisfy the consumers. Because he would have this fear that if I do not supply to him the wheat or rice at the correct price of good quality, then they will not buy other items.
But generally an average middle-sized kirana store also sells rice and wheat.
But you can make it sure. This has been tried. I'm not saying these are good models. What I'm trying to say that these are models because the state governments often, when you talk to them about them, yesterday also we had a meeting, similar meeting on other subject, they always come up with this fact that look, our SHGs have no capacity, our panchayats are also equally corrupt. So therefore, we are, of course, it's very important that we develop the capacity of SHGs and panchayats, etc. But let's also try to find out if there are other models which have worked. That's
Another problem with this model that I find is that if you go to a village and you look at the political economy of the village, the shopkeeper is also he's a money lender. The biggest money lender will own the shop, and so therefore there's always a possibility that when PTS credit gets tied to the settlement of loans that you may have taken earlier, which is why we should do it.
We should find out some empirical study that is needed to find out how these shops are working.
So therefore I'm partial towards the model of deprivatization because we already know that it has worked and it has worked well, and it is likely to work well in other contexts. But coming to your earlier question, I think all three of us, and I don't think there will be any disagreement between us on this, technology is not a substitute for governance. And it is not a substitute for political will and administrative will to run a system well. Technology cannot eliminate corruption, but it can reduce corruption significantly. Technology is an enabler. It's not a magic bullet, it's not a solution. You may have all the systems that we described. You may do all of that. But if you're chief minister or if you're food minister or if the senior most officials of your administration are determined to make money out of the system, they will corrupt any system. And I think everything that we are speaking about today, that caveat and that caution we must bear in mind. Technology is not the be-all and end-all of all solutions of development.
If there's political will to find a loophole, that loophole will be found.
Absolutely.
That's essentially what you're saying. We're slipping into yet another break now. When we come back, the discussion will continue. Stay with us.